Good morning, friends. Much awaited Honorable Supreme Court judgment in the case of safari retreats. I'm going to discuss this judgment in a crisp and to the point manner. Important aspect which is being discussed in this judgment is whether GST input tax credit is a fundamental or constitutional right. Can we say it is vested credit or it is statutory right? As we all know that the safari retreats judgment was on the issue that a particular person getting his mall constructed. So whether he will be entitled to avail credit on various goods or services like cement, iron steel, architect, designing, lot many. If we go to section 17, subsection 5, clause C, it is barring provision negative list, no GST input tax credit is available on works contract services used for construction of immovable property other than plant and machinery, or otherwise it is being used as an inward supply for further supply of works contract services. Section 17, subsection 5, clause D saying no credit of GST on goods or services or both used for construction of immovable property other than plant or machinery on its own account, including it is being used in the course of furtherance of business. And by way of explanation, construction, the term construction is being defined. And what is the definition of plant and machinery is being defined. So the issue before the Honorable Supreme Court watch and the challenge which was made, constitutional validity of section 17, subsection 5, clause C and clause D, read with section 16, subsection 4. This barring provision negative list credit not available, it is valid or not? And what is the context of section 17, subsection 5, clause C versus clause D, wherein you will find exclusion. Under section 17, subsection 5, clause C, they are referring if it is for plant and machinery, except credit is available. And plant and machinery is being defined under chapter 5, which is input tax credit, and chapter 6, registration, is defined by way of explanation. But contrary to this, under section 17, subsection 5, clause D, the exclusion, even negative list is there, goods or services, or both used for the construction of immovable property, credit is not available, except plant or machinery. So what is the difference between plant and machinery, which is there under section 17, subsection 5, clause C, or the reference of plant or machinery under section 17, subsection 5, clause D? And it is all starting with the construction of a mall, whether credit is available or not available. Having said that, I'm going to share this judgment with you and the crisp important pointers for immediate digest, which is coming from this Honorable Supreme Court judgment. Let me share my screen first. If you look at this judgment, first I'm discussing the basic provision, which I have said that under section 17, subsection 5, you will not be given credit And subclause says works contract services for construction of immovable property other than plant and machinery or otherwise it is inward supply for further supply of works contract services. So in simplistic manner, what is the provision coming out? If you happen to be my client, let's say Reliance Industries Limited, and you wanted me to undertake construction of a building, being main contractor, I would be charging GST to you. And let's say I've subcontracted this contract to a subcontractor. So in this transaction, subcontractor charging GST to the main works contractor, he will get the credit. When main works contractor charging GST to you, to client, you will not get credit unless it is meant for plant and machinery. This is what the meaning coming out. 17 subsection 5 clause D. Credit is not available on goods or services or both for construction of immovable property other than plant or machinery. So difference. For on its own account, including you're using such goods or services or both in the course of furtherance of business. So if you are getting any immovable property constructed on your own account, then you will not get the credit. Exception is plant or machinery. So we are going to discuss all these components, what is being decided by Honorable Supreme Court. Explanation after section 17, subsection 6 has defined what is the meaning of plant and machinery. So for the purposes of chapter 5 and chapter 6, which is registration, the expression plant and machinery is being defined as apparatus, equipment, and machinery fixed to earth by foundation or structural support that are used for making outward supply of goods or services or both, and includes such foundation and structural support, but excluding land, building, and any other civil structure. Telecommunication tower, pipeline laid outside the factory premises. This is the definition given of plant and machinery. So issue was, what is the definition of that plant or machinery which is being mentioned under section 17, subsection 5, clause D? This is interesting. And what is being decided? Before we discuss the held position, let me frame the question which is being considered by Honorable Supreme Court in this particular judgment. First, there were number of writ petitions challenging constitutional validity of section 17, subsection 5, clause C and clause D, which is pertaining to block credit. Whether GST input tax credit is a fundamental or constitutional or statutory right. We will discuss this component as well. Then the question was, what is the meaning of expression plant and machinery which is being referred under section 17, subsection 5, clause C, and also defined by way of explanation for the purpose of chapter 5 and chapter 6, but under section 17, subsection 5, clause D, it is plant or machinery. So what is the relevance of this one? This is what we will discuss in the held position. So meaning of plant or machinery is going to be important. So one after another, the constitutional validity is being upheld. So challenge to section 17, subsection 5, clause C and clause D is being rejected. And it is being held legislature has power to make the reasonable classification for the purpose of taxation. And the provision in question do not violate the principle of equality under Article 14 to the Constitution of India. So constitutional validity is being upheld. Coming back to denial of ITC, when constitutional validity is being upheld, then quite obvious ITC is not available because it is not a fundamental or constitutional right. It is only your statutory right. It becomes vested right in terms of Article 300 capital A only when you satisfy the condition. Otherwise, it is not a fundamental right nor a constitutional right. It is statutory right under the statute. So court cannot issue a writ of mandamus to grant input tax credit, and the judgment relied by Supreme Court, another Supreme Court judgment of ALD Automotive Private Limited. Detailed part you can definitely run through with the judgment of 70 pages around. I'm just picking up the important aspect for immediate digest. Now the important one. The first portion goes in favor of revenue. Constitutional validity upheld. Denial of ITC is correct as per the statute. It is not fundamental or constitutional right. It is only statutory right. But now what is being provided is helping the taxpayer. And this was coming from this judgment because construction of mall was considered as an issue, and wherein credit GST input tax credit on inward supply of goods or services or both. So this is how we have to discuss. It's this mall is immovable property or being excluded from the expression plant or machinery. This is what is being held in this Honorable Supreme Court judgment. Let's read it, because I'm reading this important para, which has got the important terms and meaning for our immediate digest. The expression plant or machinery cannot be given the same meaning as plant and machinery. So this is the first point. So whatever is being provided under section 17, subsection 5, clause C, and which is being defined for chapter 5 and chapter 6, cannot be applied for the term plant or machinery, which is being excluded from negative list block credit under section 17, subsection 5, clause D of CGST Act. So this is what it is coming out, and what is being held. The legislature has consciously used a distinct expression, and it must be given different meaning. It can't be at par. The word plant in the expression plant or machinery should be interpreted based on the functionality test. What is the use of it? Whether the building which is being constructed, mall which is being constructed, is essential for carrying out business activities of registered person, quite obvious. Once you complete construction of mall, it is being used for broadly two different purposes. The first one, it is being used for commercial letting out related to business taxable outward supply on which GST is being charged. Second, maybe after construction of mall, the shops in the malls are being sold out after completion certificate. And GST not leviable if whole of the consideration is being received after completion certificate. GST leviable only when a portion of money is being received before completion certificate. So this context was greatly discussed. But herein, in Safari retreat, the question was, if I got the mall constructed, which I'm using subsequently for commercial letting out on which GST charge as per object clause of, GST introduced 122 Second Amendment Bill, there should not be cascading. And there should be seamless flow of credit. In that context, this dispute was existing and then it is being discussed. So portion which is being provided in held, that expression plant and machinery and plant or machinery are distinctive terms. The explanation to section 17, plant and machinery used in chapter 5, ITC, chapter 6, registration, wherein the expression plant and machinery appears in several places. But you would be surprised to note that the expression plant or machinery which is being provided and found in section 17, subsection 5, clause D is just at once. So everywhere they are using plant and machinery except under section 17, subsection 5, clause D. If the legislature intended to give expression plant and machinery, if intended to, they could have used it. They have used plant or machinery. Thereby, legislature would not have specifically used the expression plant or machinery. In the section 17, subsection 5, clause D, legislature has made the distinction consciously. Therefore, expression plant and machinery which is being used in different chapter 5 and chapter 6 and used in section 17, subsection 5, clause C, and plant or machinery which is being stated in 17, subsection 5, clause D cannot be given same meaning. Now, having said that, plant or machinery has a different connotation. It can either be plant or machinery. Section 17, subsection 5, clause D deals with the construction of an immovable property. If it is construction of immovable property, you will not get credit of GST on goods or services or both on your own account, including such goods or services or both are used in the course of furtherance of business. Exception was plant or machinery. So this is what it is being held by Honorable Supreme Court. The very fact that expression immovable property other than plant or machinery is used shows that there could be a plant and that is an immovable property. As the word plant has not been, and surprisingly the word plant has not been defined in CGST Act and rules framed thereunder. Its ordinary meaning in commercial terms will have to be attached to it. So to derive the meaning, even though it is immovable property, can it be stated to be a plant? And so that we have to find the relevant terms, the ordinary meaning which is coming out from the commercial parlance. So question which we are discussing, question whether a mall, warehouse, or any building other than hotel or a cinema theater. This is what it is coming out from held position. Let me first read this held position. Then I have got my observation, which I will share with my viewers. They are saying question whether a mall, warehouse, or any building other than a hotel or a cinema theater can be classified as a plant. So only they are referring mall, warehouse, or any other building except hotel and cinema theater. So they are excluding hotel and cinema theater and only giving reference to mall, warehouse, or any other building can be considered as a plant within the meaning of expression, plant or machinery. Used in section 17, subsection 5, clause D is a factual question, which has to be determined keeping in mind the business of registered person and the role that building plays in the said business. If the construction of a building was essential for carrying out activity of supplying services, quite obvious, construction of mall meant for commercially letting out, on which GST chargeable, such as renting or giving on lease or other transaction in respect of the building or a part thereof, which are covered by clause 2 and clause 5 of schedule 2, and schedule 2 used for determining classification whether transaction is a supply of goods or supply of services. This is being termed as a supply of services. The building could be held to be a plant. Then it is taken out of exception carved out by clause D of section 17, subsection 5 to subsection 1 of section 16 of CGST Act. Functionality test will have to be applied to decide whether building is a plant. If plant, credit is available. Therefore, by using the functionality test in each case on the facts in the light of what we have held earlier, it will have to be decided whether construction of an immovable property is a plant for the purposes of clause D of section 17, subsection 5. Now here I'm referring one judgment, Taj Mahal Hotel by Honorable Supreme Court, which is being relied upon, and thereby they have excluded other than hotel or cinema theater. The meaning coming out, they are saying hotel or cinema theater is building. And as per this judgment, if it is building, then immovable property credit is not available. This is the one, point which is subject matter of different interpretation. Need to be tested. Even hotel constructed for subsequently letting out for commercial purpose at par with the mall. So why this term is being used other than hotel or cinema theater? Hotel or cinema theater is being understood in the context as if it is building. So building is excluded and cannot be a plant. But other mall or warehouse can be termed, even though it is immovable property, but can be termed as a plant depending on the functionality test. It is being subsequently used for letting out purpose, lease, renting of immovable property. That is what it is coming out. So in that case, credit is available. Another question which is coming to my mind, sometime you as a client getting your factory constructed. Are you letting out your factory for supply of services? No. You're using factory for the purpose of manufacturing of taxable goods. Whether you will be given credit. If you read this judgment thoroughly, to my mind, they are only applying the functionality test on the basis of subsequent usage, whether used for supply of services. But in case of factory, it is supply of goods. So in that case, it is only building, capitalized as a building. It cannot be planned. That is what the meaning coming out. So this judgment need to be read in detailed part and need to be understood in a detailed perspective. It is giving impression. So when you're talking about mall, warehouse, or any building, can be a plant depending on the functionality test, and it vary from one factual position to another factual position. Within the held position, they have excluded hotel or cinema theater. But to my mind, hotel is again going at par with the context of mall. What happened to factory? Factory construction. If any office is being constructed for providing the services, but per se that office is not being let out, used only for the provision of taxable outward supply. What happened in that case? So this context need to be understood. When building becomes plant and when building does not become plant, credit is dependent on this factor. So you have to read this judgment thoroughly. About the works contract services, which is being barred for construction of immovable property under section 17, subsection 5, clause C, what Honorable Supreme Court has said, applying the well-settled principle on interpretation of taxing statutes, there is no scope to give any meaning to clause C of section 17, subsection 5, other than its plain and natural meaning. The expression plant and machinery has been specifically defined in explanation of section 17. Works contract services has been defined under CGST Act under section 2, subsection 119 of CGST Act. We cannot add anything to clause C or subtract anything from clause C of section 17, subsection 5. ITC is a creation of legislature. Therefore, it can exclude specific categories of goods or services from ITC, and constitutional validity is being upheld. Exclusion of category of works contract by clause C will not per se defeat the object of CGST Act. So for works contract services, they are saying if it is for construction of immovable property, other than plant and machinery as defined in the explanation, or it is inward supply for further supply of works contract services, denial of credit, ITC, is being upheld. And that is what the constitutional validity which was challenged is being rejected. So crux of the judgment is in to the point manner. First, constitutional validity of section 17, subsection 5, clause C, clause D, read with section 16, subsection 4, held valid. Denial of ITC is permissible if it is being provided in taxing statute, because it is not your fundamental or constitutional right. It is only statutory right. It becomes vested right only when you satisfy the condition. Coming back to block credit, section 17, subsection 5, clause C, works contract services for construction of immovable property, credit is being barred, other than plant and machinery, or it is inward supply for further supply of works contract services. Coming to section 17, subsection 5, clause D, goods or services are both used for construction of immovable property, no credit, other than plant or machinery. Even though after construction, immovable property got created, mall, warehouse, or any other building, but that can be termed as a plant because the term plant is not being defined under the CGST Act. So the meaning of plant they have taken from different judgment. How this plant meaning is being defined in the trade parlance, that is being considered. And when you go down to the deep judgment, even plant definition also includes building also. So this judgment worth to read for getting more clarity. And depending upon functionality test, credit is being allowed only when this building is a plant. Otherwise, credit is not available. So that is what the factual position need to be looked at. And for that reason, Honorable Supreme Court has remanded back the matter to the High Court to decide accordingly in the case of safari retreats. इस जजमेंट में जो इंपॉर्टेंट टेक अवे है, पहला, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैलिडिटी जिसको चैलेंज किया गया वो रेवेन्यू के फेवर में डिसाइड हुआ, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली वैलिड है, ब्लॉक क्रेडिट का प्रोविजन है, करेक्ट है, दैट इज व्हाट इट इज बीइंग सेड, एंड क्रेडिट को डिनाई किया जा सकता है एज पर टैक्सिंग स्टैट्यूट, क्योंकि ना ये फंडामेंटल राइट है ना ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल राइट है, ये स्टैट्यूटरी राइट है। 17 सबसेक्शन 5 क्लॉज सी और क्लॉज डी को जब एनालाइज किया गया तो डिफरेंशिएशन ये हुआ कि प्लांट एंड मशीनरी 17 सबसेक्शन 5 क्लॉज सी में डाला हुआ है, जिसको बाय वे ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन आप एक्सप्लेनेशन अंडर सेक्शन 17 के अंदर डिफाइन किया है प्लांट एंड मशीनरी की मीनिंग क्या है। बट जब 17 सबसेक्शन 5 क्लॉज डी में जाते हैं वहां प्लांट एंड मशीनरी टर्म यूज नहीं किया, उन्होंने किया प्लांट और मशीनरी। तो कोर्ट ने कहा कि इवन दो कंस्ट्रक्शन के बाद एक इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी क्रिएट हुई, लेट्स से बिल्डिंग, बट दैट कैन बी टर्म्ड एज ए प्लांट, अगर वो प्लांट है तो क्रेडिट मिलेगा। एंड दिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट वाज डिस्कस एट ग्रेट लेंथ, इस जजमेंट में डिटेल में डिस्कस हुआ है। मैंने फाइन पॉइंट्स आपके सामने रखे, you may go through the judgment and then analyze your factual position. So अब इसमें बातें क्या इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाएंगी, पास पीरियड के लिए आपने क्या कॉल लिया था, क्या आपने क्रेडिट ली थी या आपने क्रेडिट नहीं ली थी। अगर क्रेडिट ली थी और डिस्प्यूटेड थी और जिसको आज की डेट में हम प्लांट मान सकते हैं तो क्वाइट ऑब्वियस यू आर इन ए बेटर पोजीशन। लेकिन अगर क्रेडिट नहीं ली लेकिन आपने इंट्रीम अकाउंट में डाल रखा है, यू आर वेटिंग फॉर दिस जजमेंट, तो आपके लिए एक विंडो ओपन हो गई, आपको यही प्रूव करना पड़ेगा कि जिस बिल्डिंग की बात हम कर रहे हैं डिपेंडिंग ऑन द फंक्शनलिटी टेस्ट ये प्लांट है। मैंने एक और कॉन्टेक्स्ट आपसे डिस्कस किया कि जब हम फैक्ट्री और ऑफिस बिल्डिंग की बात करते हैं जिसको हम यूज करते हैं फॉर सप्लाई ऑफ टैक्सेबल गुड्स और टैक्सेबल सर्विसेज, बट पर से उनको हम सब्सिक्वेंटली लेट आउट नहीं करते, तो वहां कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्या होगा, वो ऑफिशियल बिल्डिंग कहलाएगी, बिल्डिंग बोल के कैपिटलाइज होगी, क्या हम उसको प्लांट कह सकते हैं। सो दीज आर द सब्जेक्टिव पॉइंट नीड टू बी अंडरस्टूड एंड इंटरप्रेटेड टू डिसाइड आवर business exigencies. Stay tuned, lot more. This detailed judgment is being provided in the description box, which you can download for your easy digest. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much.